blame, shame, and guilt are the three mechanisms that we use in order to express, in an unconscious way, emotions that we are not willing to face. And the reason that these emotions arise is because something happens, we resist that experience, and then we create a thought about it. And the thought about it is the thing that stops us from facing it. It's the thing that says that, for example, if you've done something wrong, firstly, there's the thought that the thing you did was wrong. The second thought is the thought that says, this isn't right. And what we do is we prevent ourselves from feeling the emotion because there's a thought there that says not to face it. So we just listen to it and we don't face it. And we almost feel like because not facing it is actually painful, not facing it is what causes suffering. Because not facing it causes suffering, we get addicted to that suffering. And not just addicted, but we also believe that somehow this suffering it's like our payment for the blame, or for the thing we did wrong, or for the thing we didn't do. And we dwell on it, and we live in this shame. We think it's the punishment. We think it's the sentence that we should be facing for doing the thing that we did that was wrong. Because in order to face the emotion, we would have to accept our own innocence. That's the truth. To truly forgive ourselves, we have to see our own innocence. Not innocence in the fact that we never did the thing we supposedly did, but to see that what we are now is not an expression of the thing we did. And if we had known what we know now, we wouldn't have done the thing we did. And even if we make the same mistake again, in the same likeness, we wouldn't have made the same mistake if we needed to know what we needed to know. And when we go into blame and shame and guilt, we can't just stop halfway. We have to go all the way. We can't just go to, well, what happened to me when I was a child? It was my parents, it was my grandparents. We'd have to go all the way back to whenever existence began. And then we'd have to blame existence. And existence should feel guilty. And we have this idea that we should feel guilt, that we should be ashamed. But guilt and shame, they are the lowest vibrations that we can experience. And what I realized after going through a very traumatic experience, which I've shared in previous videos, I can put it in a link here somewhere. If I don't, leave a comment and I'll send it. And it's when we see that everything is a constant mistake, to the extent in which, when we see that everything is like a living, growing, understanding process, then we see clearly that it's innocent. Because we can't say that we were the individual doer of everything. We also can't say we're the individual doer of the things that we've done. And we also can't say that somebody else is the individual doer of the things that they've done. And there's this concept of, and I'm going on an intellectual path, but bear with me because it's going to go into a very experiential understanding. The first thing to understand is that we are either going to blame ourselves, we're going to blame somebody else, we're going to blame life. It's invalid to do that. So the reason we usually blame something or someone is because we don't know how to face the emotion that we're feeling. And we want to give it somewhere to go. And then in that giving it somewhere to go, we blame. Or we shame someone, or we feel guilt, or we feel ashamed, or we blame ourselves. This form of self-punishment it's a part of the process, but it's a mistaken part of the process. So the sooner we realize that, the better. Because the only way that we are going to uproot things that cause someone to feel blame, shame, guilty, or whatever it might be, they're not resolved by blaming ourselves, and they're not resolved by blaming other people. They're not resolved for shaming ourselves, and they're not resolved by shaming other people. So we need to see firstly the invalidity of doing so. It's not a form of punishment. It doesn't work. It doesn't make you better behaved. It makes you more It makes you suffer more and potentially leads you to further addictions. The reason we get addicted is because we blame and shame ourselves for the thing that we're doing. So it doesn't work, you see? It doesn't work. It doesn't stop suffering, it creates more suffering, and it just makes everything typically worse. The thing that I would suggest is the path of forgiveness. The path of forgiveness is not just saying, oh no, I forgive you for doing something wrong. That's an aspect of forgiveness. But true and ultimate forgiveness is like the forgiving, giving everything the freedom to exist prior to it having happened. It's the ultimate forgiveness. It's the ultimate surrender. And we all have the capacity to forgive. We all have this capacity to be able to do that. How is it that somebody who's never been on the spiritual path, believes themselves to be a separate self, all of a sudden has this innate capability to forgive? To forgive in this path is not just to forgive someone, it's to forgive everything. You have to give everything the freedom to exist. You can't just give the uncomfortable emotion of blame or shame that you don't want to feel. You have to actually give it that freedom. And we give it this freedom by recognizing this genuine lightness to our being. If you go to your experience right now, you will be experiencing the sense of being. And this sense of being is what we could call that which is alive. It's alive. It's what animates your experience. It's what turns the lights on in your experience. It's a pure awareness. And when awareness knows itself, we say it's alive. So this is what we are. We're just being alive. And this being aliveness, it's not dependent on the body. We know this because it's our direct experience that we are alive, but there's no reason that we know we are alive. We cannot put a finger on it. We cannot say it's because my heart is beating. It's not because our heart is beating. We know we are alive because we are alive. We know ourselves because we know ourselves. We don't know ourselves because our heart is beating. We don't go, oh, my heart is beating, then I, as an afterthought, understand that I'm aware. We know we are aware in order to know the heart is beating. And this is the primary experience. Now, this experience, it's pure, naked being. It is existence itself. It is that part of us that exists, fundamentally. Not a fleeting thought, not a fleeting feeling, not a fleeting emotion. It is the absolute layer of our being. It is our being. And that is all welcoming. It welcomes all experience. It doesn't just say yes to some. It doesn't go, no, I don't want to feel that. I want to feel this, and I want to see that, and I don't want to see this. It is all welcoming. Feel it in your experience right now, this welcomingness. You can't just turn it off unless you try to become deaf or blind. You can't just turn off your experience. It's all embracive. Now, this is what you are. You are that all-embracive aspect of your experience. You're not the one that says no. You're the one that says yes to no's. You see, when the arising of a no comes, you are the one that says yes to it. You see, you are a constant yes. When an injustice happens on the street, God forbid, and you feel the urge to act, you are the yes that says no to the injustice. You are a constant yes to experience. Yes, 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 all welcoming, all embracive. You can't choose whether you listen to something or not. You can't choose whether you see or perceive something or not. Even if you close your eyes, you're still seeing. You still have the essence of that. You cannot stop experiencing. You cannot stop welcoming. You cannot stop yesing. You are this constant, embracive, loving aspect of your experience, because that's what we would call love. That which embraces everything unconditionally. Imagine a woman or a mother who embraces everything unconditionally. That's what we call Mother Teresa, right? This is exactly what we are. We are this loving, embracive aspect of experience. Notice that. Now, to create the suffering you have created, you have previously welcomed everything. You have said yes to the mistakes. You have said yes to the things you didn't do. You have said yes to the things that created suffering. You have also said yes to all the things that have caused suffering. Now, we need to see that nothing has said yes to causing suffering. This is the problem. We think that we have created suffering when we haven't. We cannot create suffering. Suffering is an experience that is from a point of view that is created by the person who creates the point of view. It is never from ourselves. So we need to see that every single being is in the same pool. No one has hierarchy. No one's better than somebody else. Everyone's experiencing that process. Now, our job on this path is to recognize this and to introduce wisdom to our experience. Loving wisdom, unconditional loving wisdom. And the wisdom is that, okay, so for all my life, all I have ever done is totally surrendered and accepted everything that's happened, even if I wasn't aware of it. Because that's what allowed me to experience suffering, because I said yes to the mistakes, I said yes to the things that went well, and I said yes to the things that didn't go well, which is what created the things that didn't go well. You see? Now we take a conscious approach. We see that, well, if I've always been this loving, unapologetic forgiveness, and I've just been forgiving and giving everything the freedom to exist, no matter what it is, now we be the same loving presence and we start to forgive our current experience. Now, when we do this consciously, and we add a speck of the wisdom that we've learned from our own experience, we can now guide our experience to this place. And what that guiding would be to give your experience the freedom to exist completely as it is, which is what you've always been doing. So now you just continue doing it. Now, the quality of continuing to do it with intention, with this new taste to your experience, is that now you can start to process it effectively. Now the emotions that you're saying yes to saying no to, you can say yes to say yes to. You see? So now you can start embracing the suffering of it. This is the start of giving yourself the freedom to suffer. And it sounds paradoxical or contradicting, but it isn't. Because the minute you give yourself the freedom to suffer is the minute the suffering will disappear. Now, we're not just here to just go to this horrible emotion that we don't want to feel called blame, shame, guilt, or whatever it is, and go, I'm going to forgive it because I don't want to experience it. That's not going to work. You have to really recognize that there is innocence in everything. Everything is innate with this pure innocence because everything is this pure awareness. It doesn't know what's right or wrong. But if the mind that experiences or the mind that translates that awareness into experience hasn't yet realized what we're sharing right now, then you better believe that they will do whatever it takes to get back there. Because every decision we make is always predicated upon greater happiness. And I don't mean that metaphorically. I mean, there's only two decisions. The decision to share happiness or the decision to find happiness. Every decision, minute decision we make, and happiness I don't believe is a state of mind or an emotion or a feeling. Happiness is the nature of what we are. And when that shines into experience, unrestricted by resistance or ignorance or the veil of forgetting, it looks like happiness, it looks like love, it looks like joy. We could say love is the combination of all the pleasant emotions that we love. Desire, passion, enthusiasm, happiness, peace, excitement, that's love. When they're blended together. So what we're doing is we're taking this loving presence, instead of just going to a feeling or a state or I'm going to go to this feeling and forgive it. No. We learn to forgive everything. We learn to forgive all things. The thought that appears, the feeling that appears, the sound that appears, the sensation, everything. Be this wholesome, loving, forgiving energy to the entirety of your experience. Because the minute that you try to forgive just one aspect of experience, there's always an agenda to it. And the agenda would be, well, I'm going to forgive this experience in order to remove that experience. That's more resistance. That's more suffering, you see? So if we really want to go all the way, if we really want to help aid in this feeling of blame, shame, and guilt, then the one thing we must do is go directly to its source, which is pure, true, loving forgiveness. This is the part of the path which is always never included in any of the teachings, apart from Jesus and maybe a couple of others. It's super important that we recognize this forgiving all experience. It's true love and compassion. It's the embodiment of what we are expressed into the finite experience. If you want to learn more about this, I share these meditations every single week in my community, and I would love to see you there. It's completely free. Click the link in the description and you'll find it. I'll share some more meditations on here as well so you can find out more. Take care, guys.